This week, we got a pre-recorded interview with none other than Gabriel Gumbs, the VP of Product Strategy at STEALTHbits. Of course, a sponsored interview where we talk about lots of awesome stuff, such as moving from detection to prevention and protecting your data by understanding the roles and level of access in your environments. In the Tracking Security Innovation segment, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Matt Alderman and myself will be talking about Imperva acquiring a company. We've got Allstate accelerating expansion into identity protection with an acquisition, I believe. A really cool program to propel startups. Kaseya makes an acquisition. Very Good Security has a funding round. I'm sorry, Kaseya may have also been a funding round. And lots more in lots of acquisitions and funding rounds being announced. So stay tuned. Business Security Weekly starts now. This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Brought to you by today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/BSW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. Are you getting pressure to improve your data security? Would you like a faster, easier, better way to patch? Then you need to check out Automox. Automox is a cloud-native platform that patches and manages every endpoint, even remote servers and devices, including Windows, Mac, Linux, and third-party software from a single dashboard. Improve your cyber hygiene, reduce your attack surface, and save 90% of the effort you spend patching. Automox, your patching system of record. Do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these things can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending your assets? Have you penetration tested your public assets? Start 2018 by taking a proactive approach to securing your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com and see how they can help you sleep better at night. Welcome, everyone. We're here with Gabriel Gumbs, the VP of Product Strategy for STEALTHbits Technologies. I'm told he is responsible for end-to-end product vision and innovation, which is awesome. Gabriel, welcome.
Thank you.
On the lines via Skype, of course, Mr. Michael Santor-Cangelo. Michael, welcome.
It's always exciting to be here.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about stuff that you do and stuff that you do with customers, and specifically moving from detection to prevention.
Right. Yeah.
Which is always the goal. I mean, that was always my goal when I was doing security, but certainly really hard. It's interesting today. We talk about a lot of strategy and vision that security vendors have.
Right.
And a lot of times I'm like, where was this like in 2001? Like I really could have used that back in the day.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So.
Well, I mean, I think it's fair to say there's a lot of things, big air quotes, because security is, depending on how you slice it, no less than 8 to 12 different domains. There's some things that we'll never be able to get completely, in the out of the reactive phase, if you will. We're always going to have to react to some things. There's some things that we won't be able to protect on day one. That's the nature of what we do. But the goal is always to try and move towards that protection model. And when you look at any number of maturity models out there, and Lord knows I've created 2 or 3 myself, and they're security models, like the old phrase goes, they're like blank. Everyone has when they all stink, kind of thing. But they have one thing in common, though, which is in terms of stages, you always want to get from that not doing something at all to the performing that action, proactively to a measured and controlled state where you can start automating much of that, and that's where we start getting into moving from just the detection to the prevention, when we start to kind of advance not just not just what we do over at StealthBits. I mean, what we do serves as a mechanism. It is the vehicle for folks to get to that place. But ultimately, it's on the practitioners to implement those things, the technology and the practices to get there.
What I often find in just hearing you talk, Gabriel, it's kind of a thing when we talk about risk, right? I find that when you suggest more prevention, you reach a point where the organization's like, well, the likelihood of that stuff happening is pretty low in their mind, in that could be based on completely nothing, right? But the likelihood of that happening is low. Therefore, I'm putting all of these resources, time, money, and energy into this prevention phase for something that maybe is going to happen. Like, is that the best usage? Like, I don't feel like I should spend that much money or that much effort on that. And I think that's a lot of the struggle that we have today in security, is having that exact conversation with folks on many different fronts.
We could do 3 more segments on this.
Yeah.
So we could, literally. So the talk I submitted to RSA last year was exactly on that. It didn't get accepted. It got accepted as a backup talk.
Sure.
But so the premise of it, though, is exactly that, right? It's that business trade-off of actual risk. Do I invest $1 million in whatever solutions and personnel that you want, even though the likelihood might be low that those bad guys can get in, or do I spend that $1 million developing something new that I can go sell? That's the real business trade-off there in terms of risk. I mean, we get a little myopic in our view of risk as practitioners, as security practitioners, and risk being the likelihood of an event happening and bad guys getting in, et cetera. But from the business perspective, it's
also, I think we need to understand the impact of that bad thing happening,
right?
Even if it's maybe not a frequently occurring event, if the badness is really bad, like that could be something I want to invest in. The analogy I'm coming with, right? My furnace and AC unit is a complete hot mess at my house, right? And it was really when I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, this is a risk analysis, right? This is like, I got to think about, do some threat modeling, like what's the worst case, right? Think about your hot water heater going, think about your pipes bursting. What's the likelihood of that? What's the impact of that? I've got a family, kids and dogs in the house, like they got to stay cool in the summer, warm in the winter.
Right.
That's really important. So like, what level of investment do I want to do? And there's a whole range of options that I have. And I'm kind of going with, what, based on everything that I've seen, the likelihood, the impact, I'm going to replace everything is really kind of where I'm at now. And there's a lot of factors going into that.
What it also does, and we'll use this to transition to talking about where people are looking for this insight. You right now, Paul, have more insight and relevant information on heating and cooling systems than you did a year ago.
Yes.
And looking at the age of your system, you can start to predict that certain things may or may not happen. And there's some preventative stuff you can do to help it function better. And you can get on a service contract and everything else. But you get to a point where they look at you and say, Paul, it's 20 years old, man. It's done. Okay, now I got to put in a new one. So now you take everything you've learned and you make a series of trade-offs with that. And then you decide on the system that you want, and now you might buy the protection plan for a couple years, or you might do something different to see if you can otherwise prolong it. So that leads to a somewhat logical question, Gabriel, as we're making these changes, and you're out working with people, where are you seeing people look for this information on the threats today? Like as we're moving in, and we keep talking about this collapsing perimeter, is that changing where we're looking for things? How are we supposed to piece together where we should focus our efforts?
From a strategic standpoint, we have, as an organization, shifted for sure the information that we are feeding our customers. And a lot of that is based on input from them. I mean, we don't build anything in a vacuum. For all of the great ideas I might have and my R&D team has, none of those things are worthwhile if customers won't get any business benefit out of them. And certainly one of the things that they have been asking for more and more is certainly more internal information, if you would, right? So as you suggest, Michael, I'm kind of pushing in from the outside. So they want to know more about the activity of the internal systems and the internal actors and users, largely because everyone understands, at least conceptually now, that an insider threat isn't just a disgruntled employee. It's certainly one that could have originated from the outside, but it now lives inside my perimeter. It has gotten a hold of credentials. Maybe it's using a service account or whatever. It found its way inside, and it is now it's now, acting differently than that normal user would. It's interacting with data differently than others would, and providing that type of information is certainly where folks have been asking us to go more and more, and getting deeper and deeper on that
It's
level.
actually encouraging to hear that your customers are requesting that, because I think it's taken a long time, like the inertia to get from, like, I've got a firewall that protects my perimeter, I've got antivirus that protects my endpoints, and I've got some kind of network IDS, IPS. Like that's I feel like the old school traditional establishment kind of thing, right? We've moved in a totally new direction on a lot of different fronts.
Yes.
And I think, based on your feedback, I feel like we've done a good job of educating people to be like, all right, you know what, forget all that. Well, don't forget it, but that's all different now. You got to worry about what's on the internal network.
To be fair, there's a little bit of selection bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
My customers have come to me, they're giving me that feedback,
sure,
because they've already made that decision that this thing matters to them, right?
Yes.
So there's a slight bit of selection bias.
I'm glad you point that out. Not a lot of vendors point that out, Gabriel.
There is.
Michael and I read a lot of surveys where they don't talk about selection bias at all.
Yeah. I may or may not have written one or two of those surveys, but it's true. It's very true, though. But even so, we see them coming to us even before they become customers, because they are coming to that realization. So it's that mindset is certainly shifting. No one is ever going to forget about traditional boundary protections. That's just not a thing for all of the cloud adoptions and so forth. What we see more than anything else is more hybrid infrastructure than anything else.
Yeah.
I know very few organizations that are pure cloud. Just it's really not a thing unless you happen to be a lean startup with under 30 people. Then, you might be.
I agree.
Otherwise, you still have some egress
Pure
points.
on-prem, I think, is going away too, right?
Yes.
I think everyone, you're right, is moved to this kind of hybrid approach.
For sure, yeah.
Well, and those are good business decisions, right? Like some things are better off in the cloud, some things are better off on-premise.
One less IT administrator I might need, right? I mean, not to put IT administrators out of business, we'll still need them, but if I'm a small shop, who's got time to worry about all that stuff? There's certainly other threats at hand, so yeah, that's a thing.
What I think is interesting is we've been talking about lateral movement for a while now, and we've been talking about these things. But one of the things I've learned working with you, and obviously I'm good friends with Jonathan Sander and some other folks in your organization.
CTO at STEALTHbits.
It's the ability to look at different data sets now and combine them. Right. So it's not just saying, well, I'm only going to look at logs, or it's actually saying, no, hold on. I can tell you how people are interacting with the data itself, right? Structured and unstructured. And, oh, by the way, we can also correlate that to other things. And that's kind of fascinating to me. What are you finding in that? Like, is that useful? Like, does that, for example, let us determine whether an insider threat is an actual insider or it's a compromised account, or give us better clues? And is that useful to us? Extremely
useful. I'll tell you the number one thing I'm finding. I'll give you the industry perspective, then I'll give you the STEALTHbits perspective. The industry perspective is, we're in this what some would call, SIEM 2.0 these days, right? Where those traditional log correlation solutions are starting to mature, and they're not just places where you dump all of your firewall logs, et cetera, and then kind of parse through them. They're starting to get more intelligent. They've implemented their own machine learning types of algorithms, et cetera, so that you can start piecing out more useful information from those things. And then from even our own perspective, we are seeing the same that we've taken the approach to, which is we have all of this data. We have all this data access governance data. We have all this change in access data. We have all of this contextual data about the sensitivity of documents. We understand who's touching stuff. We know who's interacting with it. Our customers love all that stuff. So we're like, well, why don't we put it all together and do the same thing, basically? So, I mean, what you're starting to see is folks like ourselves create what on the surface kind of looks like a SIM platform. I mean, you can use whatever name you want to call it, UEBA, whatever it is, but taking in data from all of those different places and making more sense of them is just a natural place to go. Any even small organization is going to have a dozen plus different security tools spitting tons of information at them, right? And we all have to move to that place. Again, this is back to that maturity model where we have to start getting more measured and controlled with that data set, right? It's one thing to not collect it, right? So you're at absolute phase zero. Then you start collecting it. Then you start doing something with it. Then you get to that measured and control state where you're doing smarter things with it. Like I'm completely simplifying the model in that sentence, but that's definitely where I see it moving.
Well, you said something in there I want to pull on, and Paul already talked about impact. When we look at value prop, it starts by saying, okay, what's the problem you're trying to solve, and what's the value of creating it? And Paul and I on BSW 90 spent a little bit of time quickly talking about value. I want to talk for a second about impact, because you just said something about we've got, even small organizations have a bunch of tools spitting out data. One of the questions I love asking people is, it's kind of like the BASF question. Do you take what I have and make it better, or are you just another pain to look at, another step in the process, a new jargon to learn, or whatever else? And one of the things that I like that you and I've talked about is that I think your exact words were, you can't build in a vacuum.
Right.
But what I like about this is it's encouraging to me when somebody says, look, all these tools are giving you this data. What if I can show you a different way to look at it? Call it a SIM, call it whatever you want. I'm going to say carefully, please don't call it next generation. But beyond that, I like that. So tell me how you then approach that. So you're trying to create something that makes you competitive in the marketplace. You're trying to create a solution that people will pay for, but you can't build it in a vacuum. And that means you need to cooperate with people that you might even consider competitors. How do you go about doing that, Gabriel?
Co-opetition, as I like to call it, right? I mean, it's not necessarily competitive so much as we are helping. At the end of the day, if we're not bringing business value to our customers, it doesn't matter if I compete with the guy to my left or my right. Right? We can all play in that same sandbox. Making all of that better. I'm going to try and avoid any real jargon-heavy language, but we kind of look at it in an adaptive approach, which is we start with just kind of the base layer of information, things that we can collect and we can know, and then we make decisions on that. We start making better decisions as we learn more about it. So, just an example, we'll start making decisions based on how Gabe interacts with data on a file share. Great. So we see that his behavior, we'll take some baselines. It looks like this. And then we'll start layering more information on there. We might add in information about the sensitivity of that data. And we'll pull that from wherever else you have it. If you already have, another solution that will tell you that, great. I don't care where you get that from. We'll add that into it. And then we'll start layering more information. We'll raise different flags, alerts, etc., whatever you want to call them, based on that adaptive nature. The more we learn, the more we're going to tell you specifically whether or not this is something that you should be concerned about or not, as opposed to just taking that static approach of it's, that very black and white, the behavior was this threshold base, and so that's bad, or the behavior was this, and so that's good. So it's an adaptive model, Mike. So, it's really what it is.
Gabriel, it sounds like you can increase the value of some of the other security investments.
For sure.
For sure. And that's what I've always felt about the StealthBits solution. Yeah. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. Well, we're going to add more context to that. We're going to add context about who's got the access, how they got the access. That's probably one of the more important value adds that starts coming into that equation, right? It's like, okay, great. I understand that Mike's got access to this now, but how did that even happen? How did he get access to that? Was it accidental? Did someone just over permission it? Were those rights elevated? Someone doesn't even know he has those rights. And a lot of times what we see is folks even realize they have those rights. Like you look at the rights they have to data, and then you combine that with how they're actually interacting with the data, and most of them have never even interacted with that data. It's like, well, why do they need those rights?
Yeah. I tell my team that all the time too, in just troubleshooting. Like we know what went wrong, we know how to fix it. Wonderful. Like that's right. That's probably more than some teams get. But let's understand why that happened and address our processes moving forward is the most critical thing, I think, when you are dealing with especially unplanned work or some kind of incident.
That's right.
I just want to point out, Paul nailed it. When you get your impact right, you're a multiplier in the very positive direction for value. That's why you can't just look at value. You have got to look at impact. And most companies say, well, a differentiator. No, don't worry about differentiation. Just talk about impact. That's your differentiator. And if you're net positive impact, you're making the stuff that's there better. You're making the team better. You're actually a multiplier on the value. And if you don't, well, then you're degrading the value. And that's good to know. And one of the things, and Gabriel just pointed on this, that I think is really important about StealthBits, and I could not explain it the way you and Jonathan do, to be fair. And I've had both great conversations with you and great conversations with Jonathan. But that ability to go in and tell you how that data got where it was and how that person got access to it and whether they've used it or not. A lot of people right now looking at unstructured data, right? That's that data that it's not in a neatly labeled folder share that's highly structured out. It's just somewhere, right? Because everybody gets the spreadsheet that got sent around by email, or they wanted their own copy. Then they have a copy of their copy. Then I couldn't share it from that share, so I stuck it on another share, and I got 17 versions of it. I don't know which one's right. that's exactly a way to start doing that cleanup and to get that information. So what's neat about StealthBits, and I think what's maybe at times been challenging, is that you guys have a really good in-depth understanding of Active Directory and how a lot of these things work. And you can use that to show people things they didn't even know were possible that they need in order to make these types of better decisions. And I think that's just an interesting point.
Yeah, I might argue we have a better understanding of how folks implement, use, and how Active Directory plays both an operational and a security role in the real world, right? It's, to be fair, most organizations are still building on old legacy AD systems, right? I mean, they may have updated their domain controllers, and they're in 2012, they're in 2016, but the structure of them is the same. The access that's been granted is the same. None of that gets cleaned up with the rigor that it should be until there's some type of issue.
There's so many other things that go into a migration.
And if it's not broken, don't fix it, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one's complaining about the level of access they do have. People only complain about the level of access they don't have. And so, the fact that something's been over permissioned only becomes an issue when those credentials get lifted, and all of a sudden it's like, well, why did Paul even have access to the HR database in the first place? How did that happen? Well, he was a member of this group because one day we needed to add him there to fix something, and and he never gets pulled out. It happens all the time, every single day.
Yeah,
I'll hear about one of those before the day's out.
A lot of the times the way we provision people is, well, just make it look like Paul's. Well, do they need what Paul has?
Exactly.
I don't know what they need, but it's the same team's close enough. Just go ahead and do
point.
it. And it's a big mess. So what's interesting though, and this is one of the things that I like, and this is going to again show impact in a really positive light. And I love this particular angle. So you're overwhelmed with data. We've already said everybody's moving to the cloud. Wait, so you're overwhelmed with data, you're moving to the cloud. Now the costs have come down considerably, but they're not zero. So now if I look at it from a security perspective, what am I supposed to protect? What am I not supposed to protect? Like, what am I really supposed to do? If you can come in and you can show me the data that no one's touched in 5 years, and frankly, it just doesn't need to be on the cloud, we can archive it. And this data here, we can deprovision it. And this stuff is actually pretty important. We need to protect it in this particular way. What I love about it is you can help somebody get their head wrapped around that a lot faster. But then the storage group says, hey, you just saved us money. Like real money, like, wow, we like this, thanks. Now I can make better decisions. Well, if you're the security, just think about this. If you're the security team and you just helped another team both save money and do their jobs better, are you liked or disliked? And if you need budget and they're there to support you, either they've got budget for it or it becomes a no-brainer, because when you make the funding request, well, you're not just benefiting security, you're also benefiting the storage group and the operations and the cost recaptures so fast. That's why impact is so important.
Yeah, little known secret, storage teams freaking love us. Pardon my non-French there, but they really do. For that reason, right?
It was like French. It's like, New Orleans French.
Yeah, exactly. But
is that because they have to store less, or they don't have to go seek a solution to accomplish their goals because you cover it, or is it both?
All of the above.
Both.
Yeah. All of the above. And it's also because they're getting asked questions that they're expected to answer, and they're like, well, we don't really, that's not our thing.
Yeah,
they're like, we just look at the health of the systems. They're like, but
they have a problem. They can't answer those questions.
Exactly. Yeah. And the security team's like, but you own the data, right? I mean, you don't own the actual content of the data, but you own the data. So tell me where that data is. And like, I don't know where it is. I just provide you the vehicle to store that data. And then it's, so no one ever actually knows that until we come in and we're like, all right, so here's a mechanism for knowing exactly where the data is and where it moves to and how it moves there and who's touching it, etc. From a storage reclamation standpoint, Mike, you bring up a great point. So we actually have a calculator literally on the website that will show you just how much money you will save terabyte for terabyte.
That's awesome.
Just by removing that. And I'll add one more thing before we move on too, though. You reduce that overall your threat profile, right? You just shrunk the actual attack surface for anyone attempting to exfiltrate data. If there's large amounts of it just sitting there unused, that otherwise can cause you, a problem if it gets out or is misused, or you've just reduced that. That's one less thing to worry about.
When we talk about SaaS solutions, right? Salesforce, a lot of organizations today, most of them are using some kind of SaaS solution.
Right.
How does that tie in? Is that an integration? Is that some native, or does it depend?
It largely depends because we see so much folks again with hybrid platforms. We're reaching into both. We're reaching into the cloud-based storages and SaaS platforms as well as the on-premise stuff. But a lot of that equally depends on what it is they're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to move data to that environment? Are you trying to protect it there? Are you trying to model access to the data that's there based on the access you have on-prem? And there's any number of different use cases, or even the GDPR one. Is it simply I need to know what's there and have the process in place so that I can provision access, deprovision access, remove that data when requested, whatever the case may be. So there's probably, off the top of my head, easily more than half a dozen different use cases there.
Sure.
But
it came to life for me when I thought about vendors that largely use Salesforce and have price sheets. And it's not super private. Like, you have to share that with certain people, and you understand that it might get out there, but there are certain people, maybe in the internal organization, that you can limit their access so it doesn't get out there. So that was like, that put the rubber to the road for me about like, oh, okay, like, let's think about how we protect that data. And then when I heard about solutions such as StealthBits, I'm like, okay, now I can kind of make that connection in my brain.
Yeah, you start by classifying it. What is that? It's a price sheet. Okay, well, what is a price sheet? Well, it's financial data, right? Okay, great. So tick. It's internal only data, right? That's confidential. So tick that box also. And it's data that really only certain members of the organization need to have access to, the sales team, right, et cetera. If I just left it out there, say on an open share where even the developers can get access to it, it's not that it's a harm in the developer's hands, but again, it's one more chance, one more opportunity for that data to get out.
Right.
So
and the age of that data is important because, as you pointed out, if the developers have access to it, developers are at a conference, local meeting, someone asks them, hey, like what are you charging, right?
Right.
Developers should say, talk to my sales team.
That's right.
But if they've seen that data, they may say, push comes to shove. But that data could be 6 months or a year old that they saw, and they're like, they've got it all wrong. And it's not so much the price, but maybe how it's packaged too that factors into that.
That's right.
That's that could be bad.
That's a good point.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not the most horrible situation for a company.
That sounds like experience, Paul. That was a really detailed example.
I've worked for a security vendor, yes, and worked very closely with smart individuals on pricing and packaging, and that's where I was like thought about the sensitivity of that data.
That's right.
That's really well said. All right, so let's do this then. And there's more that we can talk about, but we're about to run out of time. I wanted to, so we're gonna have to have you back, Gabriel, because I want to talk about playbooks and the importance of playbooks and how playbooks contrast SOAR, security orchestration and automation. And I think that's going to be really interesting. But let's give people something to think about here. We talk about this, right? We've of course dropped the GDPR, and we've talked about structured and unstructured data. We give people things that I know people are focusing on. So where do they start? Somebody listening to that right now, what do they need to think about to just get going in the right direction here?
Yeah, there's at least two places, and I think we touched on these already. The first is, so what are you trying to protect? You can't protect all the things all the time, right? We all agree to that. I mean, you certainly can try, but good luck with that. So what do you need to protect? And start by identifying that. What is it and where is it? And sometimes I'll tie that directly back to the business. What do you do? What does your organization do for a living? A great example I like to use are like package carriers, right? UPS, et cetera. Just in no particular names or whatever, but the nature of their business isn't necessarily getting things to your door. The nature of their business, they're a logistics company. So the things that matter to them are logistics data, right? So start there. That's the thing you need to protect. So the first question I ask anyone when they're like, where do I start is, well, first start by identifying what it is you need to protect. Go find it, discover it, go classify it. And then from there, you can start developing all of your controls around it, the written controls, the technical controls. All of those things can then be developed based on that information. A lot of folks, I think, try to do it in the opposite. Like, they're like, well, I'm just going to copy the controls that this other organization did because it sounds good and it looks like it'll protect stuff. And just blindly just copying and pasting controls, whether they're technical ones or written ones, may not adhere to the data it is you're trying to protect. And then even if you do that, it's like, okay, so great. You have all those things in place. You have all those written controls and technical controls in place. Where are the things that you're trying to protect? And what are they? You got to start there. You absolutely.
You know what I love about this, Gabriel? Because you made a point, and I'm just going to go ahead and set it up for you. Because you said this, and I said, so basically what we're telling people is go back to the basics.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean it adversarially, because you're like, yeah, that's where we got to start. And I think we say that, and people are like, yeah, the basics. Okay. you said something that was really important. I'm just going to try to capture the essence of what you said, and I'll let you talk about that, and then we'll call it a day. You said, but that doesn't mean you have to be alone. I can't tell you how many teams I've come across that say, well, when I could just get to this place, we'll go get help. When I could just get to this, we'll ask for help. Oh, that's the basics. I got to get the basics done before I even go work with anybody else. Yeah. And you pointed out, and this comes from your experience on the other side of the table, not just working for StealthBits, but actually in the trenches solving it, to say, if this was basic, but I'm struggling to get it done, maybe I need some help. Maybe someone can help me get that first level done, and that lets me get there. And I think you basically said, Michael, we help people with that. Like, that's one of the things that we do. And it's like, oh, of course. So just keep in mind, when we say that's basic, it doesn't mean that it should be done or whatever else. It just means there's no shortcuts.
There's no shortcuts. But
if you need help, somebody, right? Did I get that right, Gabriel? I mean, that was kind of the essence of it.
That's absolutely another Gabe-ism phrase I like to use. We get them what they want, and then we get them what they need, right? And what you want, what a lot of them want, what they're asking for, although sometimes they ask for it differently, is exactly that. They're like, we just need help getting to that basic place, and then we need X, Y, Z. Well, yeah, we'll start with what it is you want, and if what you want is just to find out again, who has access, whatever the case.
I like your point, Gabriel, about figuring out what's most important to your organization, because I think that it's kind of similar to some of the exercises we've done, here to help improve our processes, right? So you start to think about, what's most important? And I think Michael was one to point it out, a lot of people say, well, Coke has to protect their recipe for the soda. It's like, actually, no, I don't think that's the case. I think it's more important probably for them to protect the process that they're producing it consistently on a mass scale.
There you go.
That's probably what they need to protect and defend against any attacks against that process, right?
I would agree.
I think it's a similar thing like in the cigar industry, right? Yeah, I may know all the different components, but really their thing they want to protect is that process from seed to cigar. Yeah, sure, it's well documented, but how do you do it differently?
Right.
That whole process, that's what they have to protect.
It was a really good example of that, and we'll wrap up in the paint world, right? They were talking about whiter whites, and it was a big breakthrough, and it was in process. It wasn't in the chemicals that went into making that white. It was in how they produced it, how they created it. That's true. That I try to tell that to as many folks as will listen. When you're thinking about what's important to your organization, think about how the business generates revenue. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that you need to protect against loss, not just all of the random data. Yes, those things are important also, but at the core of it, what you really need to understand if you're going to protect the business is how the business operates.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because we think of security as a process, and what we're saying is it's a process that has to protect your process.
Yeah, we heard you like process so much, we put it in your process.
That's exactly where we got to end it. That was fantastic.
I love it.
Man, I wish I was in studio with you guys. I love hanging out with Gabriel. And of course, I have a crush on Paul, and I can't hide that anymore. But
mutual.
Everyone's aware of it.
It does seem that way.
It's all over Twitter.
Gabriel, but thanks for joining us on Business Security Weekly and sharing your insights.
Thanks for having me, fellas.
Thanks, Gabriel.